Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, and our ongoing study in The Spiritual Gift of Madness by Dr. Seth Farber, published in 2012. We're going to take a look at pages 76 to 86, and we're going to discuss the ongoing dialogue between the American Psychiatric Association and those who protest the assertions of the American Psychiatric Association. Let's go to block 1, and we begin with the AMA and their assertions. The AMA affirms that there are mental disorders mediated by the brain, affecting cognition, thought, and emotional regulation, and the ability to plan and to organize behavior. Yet, brain science is still in its infancy and is not yet able to discern pathology, lesions, and or genetic disorders. Discerning neurological disorders. Biomarkers for mental disorders have not been fully defined. Disorders may be due to intracellular communication problems, disrupted neural pathways. Some antidepressants do address neurotransmission between cells. Neurotransmission and treatment. Markers include distress experienced, level of disability, pattern of behavior, mood regulation. And I can testify to that one because after suffering a massive stroke, mood regulation is an impossibility. You have to have help, and I use a drug called Nudexta. It's new on the market, but it does help patients who have suffered a massive stroke and have the inability to do mood regulation. And the Nudexta drug does definitely meet that need. But mental disorders consist of emerging properties in multiple systems. Mental disorders account for an annual cost of about $160 billion. In 2011, the President's new Freedom Commission was established to enhance the rights of people with mental illnesses. So, all mental disorders are not due to physiological, neurological problems, but some are. Now, block 2, the protest response to the ASA or the APA. The response, you must provide scientifically valid evidence for the validity of schizophrenia, depression as being bio-based brain illness, and a brain scan must be first done before a prognosis of needed drug regimen therapy takes place. Abnormalities of the brain must be supported by empirical evidence. I think that's a fair demand from the protest response. Lack of evidence for brain pathology. Instead, we should investigate the patient's reaction and distress as related to personal history and as related to social context. All mental disorders are not neurobiological. Biological processes do play a role, but not necessarily as cause. So they are not always the cause of mental disorders, but biological processes do play a role. Now, defining the neurochemical balanced personality as a baseline still needs to be accomplished. It has not been done as yet. And we need proof that any psychotronic drug can correct chemical imbalance. We do know that medications influence specific neurotransmitters, and pharmaceutical companies need to negate the reckless practice of false advertising concerning chemical imbalance. So those are the three main areas of protest response to the AMA in Block 2. And then Block 3, conclusions from the dialogue. Findings. The APA says mental disorders are likely in the future to be proven to represent disorders of intercellular communication. Even if that evidence is lacking now, they say it is likely to be proven in the future, or due to disrupted neural circuitry. However, brain science remains a complex study, and the biochemical model today still dominates the mental health system. The continuing neurobiological model. Pharmaceutical advertising saturates the media, and get this, 1/3 of the APA's operating budget is funded by the drug industry. The question comes up, on what basis are psychiatric professionals given authority as medical doctors? Diagnosis, says Dr. Farber, has become a mass deception when we presuppose the neurobiological model or the neurobiochemical model. So let's do a quick recap here. Let's go to Block 1 and take a look at the assertions of the APA. And just go to Block 1, Note 1. The APA affirms that there are mental disorders mediated by the brain that affect cognition and thought and emotional regulation and the ability to plan and to organize behavior. Yet brain science is still in its infancy and is not yet able to discern pathology, lesions, or genetic disorders. But yes, mental disorders can be mediated by the brain. In the case of a massive stroke, brain injury, my right hemisphere brain was killed by a massive stroke. I have my left hemisphere brain, but not my right hemisphere brain. And so I'd lose all the functionality of my right hemisphere brain. And it does cause, I can testify to that fact, that initially you have terrible depression, because you've lost everything. And you have to learn how to redefine your life. But you have terrible depression, and you don't have any emotional mood monitoring. You can't control emotion. It just runs on its own. And I had to do the investigation on my own and take it to my neuro physician. And I said, I've found this drug called Nuedexta. It looks like that it meets the need of massive stroke patients that seek to have mood regulation enhanced. And he ordered it for me. This was through the VA hospital. He ordered it for me, and I can tell you it does work. I'm still on it. But there's an instance when, yes, drug therapy does help individuals who have suffered massive stroke. So there is, I can testify that there is a time when, yes, it is a neurobiological matter, and that it could be addressed with drug therapy. It's just that you don't, what Dr. Farber is saying is you don't automatically jump to that conclusion, but obviously in the case of a massive stroke, you are going to be able to go in that direction because you'll have the empirical evidence, including a brain scan. You'll have the empirical evidence. Now, Block 2, let's go to Note 3, because I think it's the most important response. The neurochemical balanced personality as a baseline has not been as yet and needs to be accomplished. And we need proof that any psychotronic drug can correct chemical imbalance. We do know that medications influence specific neurotransmitters, and pharmaceutical companies need to stop and negate the reckless practice of false advertising concerning chemical imbalance. And then block 3 for a recap. I think note 2 is interesting to me, that pharmaceutical companies and their advertising saturates the media. And I thought this was very interesting. 1/3 of the APA's operating budget is funded by the drug industry. Now that's a huge compromise, because we already learned in the previous lesson that the drug companies are funding research. Well, they also fund 1/3 of the APA's operating budget. So what's that tell you? That tells you that, of course, the APA is going to lean toward authenticating the chemical imbalance model for mental illnesses, mental disorders. But I think this lesson does give us some good points from the APA and the protest response. And that's going to wrap up, let's see, that was pages 76 to 86. And next time we're just going to take 10 pages, 86 to 96. So we're just going to do 10 pages at a time. But I think we had a good presentation here of the fact that Block 1, Note 3, that neurotransmission and treatment, that markers include distress experienced, level of disability, pattern of behavior, mood regulation. All of those, all 4, need to be considered when determining a treatment that will include a drug regimen. All 4 are important. Distress experience, level of disability, pattern of behavior, mood regulation. And like I say, especially if a patient has suffered serious brain damage, like with a massive stroke, just now they're developing new drugs to address, first of all, mood regulation for those who have suffered a massive stroke. And it's a game changer. It really, the new Dexta medication has been a tremendous help to me. So I can say thank you to the drug industry for that one. That's going to wrap up our lesson for pages 76 to 86. We'll pick up next time, beginning on page 86.